Hello, this is Brian. Today is Saturday afternoon. Actually, it's more towards evening. It's July 24th, 2021. I am in the lower elevations of the Tehachapi Mountains in Kern County, California, just upslope from the actual city of Tehachapi. And I want to present a spotlight on trees today. And this is a spotlight I've been needing to do for a very, very long time. It is on one of the major symbols of California, the valley oak, Quercus lobata. Now, it may not be the official state tree. In fact, the state tree, actually co-state trees are coast redwood and giant sequoia, or Sierra redwood if you like. This is very much a major symbol of our state. This is a very well-known tree from our state. So we got Quercus lobata, the beautiful valley oak. You can see here, we got these small, roughly rectangular furrows on the bark. Quite a decent sized tree. Actually, they can get much larger than this. In fact, I believe this would be known as the largest species of oak here in California. It should actually easily be the largest species. And it's also one of the larger species in the world. Now, this tree here is probably about 65 feet tall, maybe about 65, 70 feet, which is actually fairly typical. However, some valley oaks have been known to get well over 100 feet tall, which out here in the West, when it comes to hardwood trees, like oaks and such, that's not as common. We want to find, we want to find lots of 100-plus foot trees. You're going to be mostly looking at the coniferous trees, like we got Pacific ponderosa pine up here, white fir, and so forth. The valley oaks, these can get quite large too. There are monster-sized trees that are probably like 120, 140, 100, maybe even 150-plus feet tall in central and northern California. So, I mentioned that the name is Quercus lobata. That's the botanical name of this tree. And it comes from the fact that the leaves are lobed. It has those stereotypical oak leaves. You see here, most of these leaves are quite deeply lobed, actually, as you can see here. This one's quite deeply lobed. But the leaves on these trees are quite variable. Some of them are not quite as deeply lobed, such as this one here. And this one here is only maybe about halfway lobed. And this is called what they call the sinus, the indentation on the lobe is called the sinus of the leaf. Now, valley oak is a member of the white oak group. G-R-O-U-K, yeah. The white oak group, which is the Lepidobalanus, also known as section Quercus. So it shares a lot in common with other white oaks, including the Quercus alba, the white oak of the eastern half of North America, which this tree does share quite a bit of similarities. Of course, the rounded lobes, and that's another thing about white oaks. The lobes are usually rounded. They don't have bristle tips on them. That is what you're going to expect to see on red oaks, like Quercus kellogii, which is found a very short distance up slope from here, actually. If you go up maybe about not even a half a mile, you're going to see Quercus kellogii, which is quite common as you gain elevation. I would say we're about an elevation of 5,500, 5,600 feet. So we're actually, I believe we're quite close to the elevational limit of valley oak. And yet here it is growing with its beautiful, gnarly, old-fashioned style. Crooked branches, beautiful deep green leaves, provides great shade on a hot summer day. And you know how California summers, inland California summers can be really hot. So, beautiful valley oak. Like I said, it's closely related to Quercus alba, which is the white oak of back east. And another name for this tree is also California white oak. So again, lobed leaves, and like a lot of, not all of them obviously, but like a lot of white oaks, it is also winter deciduous. In other words, in fall, these leaves will fall off and this tree will be completely leafless during the course of the winter months. And if we're talking about fall color, Valley oak is not known for extremely brilliant fall color, but some shades of dull yellow, some browns, maybe some slight oranges are possible when the leaves change. And I believe valley oaks are one of the later trees to shed their leaves. Oak trees tend to, a lot of valley oaks tend to be a little bit later to shed their leaves. Of course, there are a lot of related oaks in this actual area here in the Tehachapi Mountains and also through much of California. These trees grow in the Coast Range foothills from Northern California down to, I believe, Santa Barbara, maybe Ventura County, and down into northwestern Los Angeles County, usually terminating its southward range around Santa Clarita. However, there is a voucher for one of these in, I believe, El Moro Canyon in the southern part of Orange County, California. There's an old valley oak there that is in pretty rough shape. So valley oak does, and it also goes up the Sierra foothills too. And you also see it sometimes in the Central Valley. So, as I was mentioning before, this area also is host to several of valley oak's relatives. We have different types of scrub oaks that are usually evergreen, like Quercus, John Tuckery, I think might be out here. Then we get some other types of scrub oaks like Quercus alvordiana. And then, let's see. Trying to see if I can find another example. You got blue oak. Blue oak is probably its most common closely related oak species found here. So here I am, just walking up this a little bit. I want to show you. So we're talking about valley oaks being white oaks. Well, here's an example of a red oak. Let's see if I could find one. Okay, for a minute I thought I was looking at a black oak. Black oaks, this is another valley oak. I thought I was going to see a black oak around here. Here we go. This is actually Quercus lobata. This is the California black oak. Don't mind me, I'm walking up this loose dirt here. So I'll show you some contrasts. You saw the leaves, how they had rounded lobes. Now we're going to look at a red oak. Here we got Quercus lobata, the black oak, or California black oak. It's obviously it's an oak, so it does have some relation to valley oaks. But if you look at the leaves on Quercus lobata, you see little pointy tips on the lobes. So this is the leaf of Quercus lobata, California black oak. So the leaves are bristle tipped. Some other interesting things about the oaks here. The valley oak, again, I'm going to mention it again. Valley oak is a white oak. So what that means is that acorns typically ripen in one growing season. So acorns on Quercus lobata ripen in one growing season, as opposed to multiple growing seasons. So a female flower, which is pollinated in April, will ripen in October or November. So white oaks typically ripen in one growing season. Red oaks, not all of them, like Quercus kelloggi, they ripen in two growing seasons. So any female flowers that are pollinated this year, say April of 2021, will ripen in October of 2022. So it takes two growing seasons. And you notice the bark is kind of similar on both of them. The bark is kind of similar. Oaks a lot of times will have similarly checkered bark, whether it's a red oak, a white oak, you name it. So let's get a larger scope of this tree that I have started my spotlight on. Let's take a look at that. That's a pretty nice sized tree itself, in general speaking. I say it's probably about 65 feet tall. It has a very open, widespread crown. And that is typical of valley oak growing in woodland situations. In other words, where the trees are very widely spread apart. Valley oak tends to form its own woodlands, usually in lower valleys. See, we're at the lower point of Tehachapi mountain range, so these areas are actually quite favorable for it. Where it's a little more exposed, like here, the trees tend to be a little bit smaller. But down in these washes, that's where the trees can get very large. In fact, this is going to kind of contradict what I said a little bit, but I want to show you. It's a valley oak that's very old, and it's got a humongous trunk. Must be a very old tree. Kind of where the sun is shining right there. I mean, obviously I'm not going to cross that fence there, but you can see here we got valley and blue oak both growing. They will grow together in lower portions of valleys and floodplains. Sometimes blue oaks will grow right next to valley oaks, but typically you're going to see blue oaks more above on the even drier hillsides than where the valley oaks typically grow. So here we go. We got a riparian corridor, a riparian woodland of valley oaks here. All along here, some very old trees. You see this one here? This is a very, very old valley oak. Probably many hundreds of years old. Been here probably before the settlers came. And they can get humongous, humongous trunks on them. So, I know this video is supposed to focus on blue oaks. However, I'm sorry, let me scratch that. This video is supposed to focus on valley oaks. I'm just so excited to finally do a spotlight on trees. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. So this video is supposed to focus on valley oaks. So there are similar species that grow in this area to valley oak. You've got Quercus Douglasii, the blue oak, as I mentioned. And you also have another type of oak, and I'm hoping to find it. I know I've seen one here before, and I thought I saw one on the way up here. But if you're looking uphill a little bit, these trees here with the lighter cast, those are blue oaks. And they have generally lighter gray, slightly lighter gray trunks, and much smaller leaves that are barely even lobed at all. So I mean, from a distance, they might look quite similar, and they do grow in very close proximity to one another. But here's a blue oak right here. In fact, these ones got much smaller leaves on them, and they might barely even have any lobing on them at all. Try to see if I can find a good looking blue oak leaf on the floor. Okay, here's what a blue oak leaf looks like. Very shallow sinuses, if any at all. Very shallow lobes, if any lobes at all. And usually their trunks are a little bit lighter gray, but still quite similar. But the bark tends to look a little thinner on Quercus douglasii. The valley oak bark tends to be a little bit thicker. And and the size. That's another thing you'll notice. Valley oaks are much larger trees. Much larger trees than blue oaks. Not to say that blue oaks can't get decent size. They can get up to sometimes over 60, 70 feet tall on occasion. But especially in these drier areas, like on this exposed south-facing slope here, they're typically going to be anywhere from 15 to maybe 40 feet tall, usually around 30 feet tall. Just remember, the lobes are very shallow on those. And I'm hoping to find the other species that I wanted to show. Some other species of oaks around here. Here's another species right here. This appears to be Quercus garryana, variety garryana. I believe this is Oregon white oak right here. It's another species that might be confused with Quercus lobata. See, Quercus garryana, variety garryana, is a generally, fairly smaller, significantly smaller tree usually, but it can get quite large. It can get up to 70, 80 feet tall as well. And the leaves are very similarly lobed as well. But the bark tends to be shreddier. As you can see on this tree here, you might not see it very well. Try to zoom in a little bit. The bark is shreddier. So I can tell this is not a valley oak. This appears to be Quercus garryana, variety garryana, the Oregon white oak. And variety garryana, Quercus garryana, is a tree, whereas there is a relative. I'm trying to find it before the video runs out. So apparently Quercus garryana, variety garryana grows here too. I've never seen that here. Never seen Oregon white oak. However, and this is where it's going to get more interesting. Bear with me. I know this is a very long-winded video. It's supposed to be about valley oak, but and we also have this one here. This is also a Quercus garryana, but this is Quercus garryana variety brewery. This is called brewer oak. This is a smaller, shrubbier version of Oregon white oak right here. This is Quercus garryana variety brewery, and the leaves are a little bit smaller on these. Like I said, they're similarly lobed. A. B, these are white oaks as well, so again, acorns ripen in one growing season. And so this is the first time I have ever seen both varieties of Oregon white oak in my life. I've never seen the tree version of it. But this is a Quercus garryana variety brewery. It's called brewer oak, and it's the shrubby version of Quercus garryana variety garryana. So it's another white oak. Of course, Oregon white oak, Quercus garryana, variety garryana, is also a white oak. But you can see, oaks can be very confusing and very similar to one another. So keep that in mind. So I'm going to wrap this up now. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll leave some more information in the description. But when you're out in Valley Oak territory, check them out. And check out their relatives too. They can be quite similar. So thanks for watching this Spotlight on Trees, and I will see you on the next episode, hopefully soon.